back to your hour. Joining me now from back from a long engagement with with COVID is Jamie Whitfield, who is a recovering addict, and actually you're recovering from COVID now too.
Yes.
That really knocked you on your can for a couple of weeks,
Yes,
didn't
it
it?
did.
So what you wanted to talk today about healthy boundaries and
Yes. Healthy boundaries in recovery and not in recovery are very important. First of all, I would like to define what boundaries are. They're basically the limits and rules that we set for ourselves within relationships.
okay.
And so, with that being said, relationships become unhealthy when we act from a place of fear rather than love. The self love and love for others. And so, signs that you need to set boundaries are basically not doing things out of feelings of guilt or obligation. We that's so easy to do is
Yeah.
not being able to say no just because
Right.
you feel obligated, or guilty, and attempting to please others even at the expense of what's best for yourself. So them are just a few things that are in place that you need to probably try to set some boundaries for yourself and others.
Well, and they say too that uh, you actually teach other people how to treat you.
Yes.
And so that kind of falls in line with the boundaries.
Yes, it does. And so there's like three main steps to changing the patterns that keep us in that unhealthy relationship. And the first one would be to identify your fears. Being aware of what's causing you to not have that self-worth and self-love is the number one to changing and shifting that whole pattern of setting up them boundaries for you and others. And common fears in the context of boundaries that get in the way are like fear of not being good enough. That is a main one. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. Them are things that cause us to just kind of go with the flow with other people's, boundaries that they have for us as well. And so, step two would be choosing love over fear. And when you want to view your world with a lens of love, and that's that self-love, that self-worth. And when we create that awareness around what is causing us not to have them boundaries, then we're able to recognize from a different spiritual perspective of how to look at things and,
Yeah.
and value your own self-worth to set them boundaries. And I thought that was really good. And instead of believing in our fears, we can choose to put our faith in a loving perspective to just grow from that and release our fearful illusions of things and begin to experience that beautiful change in our life happening by being able to set them boundaries with others.
Because when you're recovering, you're constantly evolving,
Yes.
and you really need to kind of uh, reset yourself
Yes.
periodically just to stay current.
Yes, well, and to grow,
Yeah.
is basically what it is, and even setting boundaries for anyone. This is an ongoing thing. This
Yeah.
is something that we don't just wake up one day and say, "Oh, I got this." It's something that you have to kind of really mentally and emotionally like work towards it to be, because it's so hard. Like even for me, sometimes I have to catch myself not parenting out of guilt.
Yeah.
And being able to set them healthy boundaries with my children, and that is part of this. And so the next step is to act. Every time we choose love over fear, we commit an act of self-love. And that is just so beautiful to me because that is so true. And when we secure our own worth, then we are able to have an abundance of creating healthier relationships, you know. And I found that very important, even for me, like just learning how to set boundaries, you know, because it's something that I'm still learning to do. I have a hard time saying no.
Yeah.
And it's just because I want to people please, and you know, not being able to say no, it does create that codependency.
Yeah.
And then sometimes not being able to say no creates, you know, resentments and anger.
Sure.
You know, because then you start getting angry at yourself because you can't, you know, set them boundaries with other people. So
Well, and getting back to the self-love and the self-esteem, if you don't develop a healthy self-esteem somewhere along the way, it's really easy to fall back into the old patterns.
yes, yes, it is. And there again, it's them old patterns of finding yourself with the old people, places, and
Right.
things, and thinking that this is okay. It's
Yeah.
not. It's
It'll
not
be
healthy.
different this time.
Yeah, you know, there's not going to be any difference. You
Yeah.
know, that end result is gonna be the same eventually. You know, and so I that self love and self worth, it really plays a big role in being able to set them boundaries, because if you can do that, then everything that you do, and being able to speak your truth and your mind, everybody wins in that
Right.
situation, you know. And we can't control what that other person, you know, how they perceive what you're saying, but everyone literally, contrary to what we think, everyone wins when they're able to express themselves honestly. And I think that it was a really good lesson for me to be refreshed on.
Well, and I think now that you're kind of on the road to recovery from the virus, are you going to be holding another meeting on Monday?
Yes, we're going to get back on track. I'd like to invite any woman. It's a women's meeting, so any women out there that would like to come join us on Monday from 7 to 8, they're welcome to. It's here at the station, 934 North Water, and anybody that may identify as a woman is welcome to come as well. So just trying to get back on track. Yeah, like
Yeah.
you said, for the last 2 weeks has been a little hectic for
Yeah,
us.
well, like I say, it knocked you on your can. So that's kind of what it does.
Yes, it is.
But the idea of setting boundaries and building your own self-esteem and self-love are good lessons for anybody,
Yes.
regardless of whether you're recovering or not. I really think, quite frankly, we're all recovering from something.
Yes, I do agree with that. It doesn't necessarily have to be an addiction to
Right.
drugs. You know, we have addictions to, we've talked about this before, to gambling, sex,
The food.
yeah, you know, there's lots of addictions.